Welcome to everybody to this week's live stream and Liberty First Foundation Roundtable. We encourage everybody to join into the conversation through chat. We are on YouTube and Facebook, and you can find go through the chat on that, and we'll see it. And we more than welcome you to join the conversation. With me tonight, I have Jeremy Bishop and Michael Vasquez. I'm Mike Marshall, and let's get on with the show. So, Mr. Vasquez, what do you have that's going on this week that you think we should talk about?
Oh, God, there are so many things. But I suppose the two big things, one is big for the public, absolutist free speech in reference to Elon Musk, in reference to the disinformation governance board, otherwise known as the Ministry of Truth.
Yep.
And on my side, there is an upcoming protest on May 3rd, and I had cops called on me. So Let me start with that one because they're all kind of connected together because in total, we're talking about the First Amendment.
Right.
It's about free speech. It's about free assembly. So
exactly.
There's a college. It's SUNY Broome. It's a New York State college, Broome Community College. They're putting on a CRT application, a racial justice deliberation.
Right.
I did in December. I taped it in December. I disagree with every single word they said. I've been fighting it for a year because I think it's racist. Fair. When I found out they're doing it on May 3rd, which is this Tuesday coming up, I said, hey, no problem. I'm going to protest because I absolutely disagree with this. The first thing I was told is, should we call the police on you? I'm like, why? Why would you do that? That makes no sense. They didn't call police on BLM. I'm just saying that's what I want to do. They said they were going to do it. Well, on Tuesday, they did, in fact, call the SUNY Broome campus police. The chief called me up because he's required to, because a faculty member told them that I have to be investigated, which is, I take it as an intimidation factor, that they're trying to silence me. Talk to the chief, no problems whatsoever. He's all for it. It's like, go ahead, go do it. You're fine. I'm going forward with the protest. So on one side, we're watching this very liberal professor, a progressive, who is trying to silence a Black Hispanic about an event which is supposedly to improve the race relations and racial equity of Black and Hispanics. Again, what I am. And she's trying to do that by silencing me. And a week before the event, she doesn't know what I'm going to say, what I'm going to do, didn't ask. And I'm suddenly being silenced. And now we have, at the same time, Elon Musk is trying to be silenced by similar types of people with similar thoughts. They're saying, you can't speak. We can't let other people speak. We need to silence all of these people because it's absolute free speech. We're terrified of it. And remarkably, within days of him getting to move forward, we now have this Ministry of Truth that is straight out of 1984 that is saying we're going to decide what is true, what is not true, what can be said to the American people. All of this is violating the First Amendment on an individual level and as a nation. And if we let this go forward, we are going to lose this nation. Forget about China coming in. Forget about Russia. Forget about all these other nations that want to take everything that we have. Forget about Iran that wants to kill us. Whether you're a progressive or you're a Republican, doesn't matter. They want to kill everyone because gays get to walk around free in this nation, because women get to drive cars and go to work, because we don't believe the same religion they believe. We're not going to lose the nation to those people. We're going to lose it because we've got a Ministry of Truth that comes straight out of the worst authoritarian governments we have ever seen. And this is so common an idea that we have a New York State University, their faculty are trying to silence people for the mere fact that I say I don't agree.
Oh, this isn't the first time that schools have tried to silence free speech.
That's true.
They're okay. In 1969, the Supreme Court ruled in Tinker versus Des Moines Independent Community School District that students' right to free speech, that students don't lose their right to free speech. Students nor teachers. In Healy versus James in 1972, using Tinker, the Supreme Court again upheld the First Amendment rights of Healy for their right to say what they want on college campuses. Okay. I mean, literally, there's case after case after case. 69, 72 was Healy versus James. Then you have Pappas versus Board of Curators of the University of Missouri, which upheld that a student newspaper has the right to free speech. Um, when the school tried to block what they said was indecent speech. Um,
Yeah, there's been a lot of it.
right. I mean, you've got UWM Post versus Board of Regents, University of Wisconsin, IOTA's Xi chapter of Sigma Chi fraternity versus George Mason University in 93. You've got, so, I mean, there's been lots of free speech cases that have been ruled where the universities or schools have tried to limit free speech, and basically they've been told they can't. That free speech or First Amendment rights are universities cannot do anything, create rules, or do anything that would violate a person's right to free speech.
But see, you know what they're doing? It's kind of like what Biden is doing right now. They're doing an end run on our First Amendment rights. What they're doing is they're trying to create this environment where people will be silenced. They're going to intimidate you. They're using the full force of the government. In the university here locally, they're using the power of the police and the university and that system to try and intimidate me. On Biden's end, we're looking at them trying to use the full force of the United States government, the FBI, whether it's with Merrick Garland or with this new institution, DHS, Department of Homeland Security. They're trying to use this power to say, you wouldn't dare try and take us on. You wouldn't dare try and say anything against us because we're too powerful. We will crush you like a fly. And we don't hear enough people standing up, and we're getting there, but we don't have enough people who are standing up and saying, don't you even dare try, because you can't possibly win, because that's what America is about. And every American is at risk, and you're trying to take us all down. You know?
Well, the current administration has already said their piece when we were talking about the Second Amendment, and he said, go ahead and try. We've got F-16s and nuclear weapons. They've already proven that they don't care what the average citizen thinks, and they think they're going to do whatever they want, and they'll just overpower us if we try.
The FBI was called out today. Actually, I don't know if it was today or when it was exactly. In Bloomberg, what's the date on this? I don't see a date. FBI searched. Let me go ahead and.
Was that the journalist that got searched?
Hold on a second.
Sure. While he's searching for that,
Yeah.
Jeremy,
Yeah,
why does it look like daylight?
it
looks
is.
like
So the FBI searched data of millions of Americans without warrants. Search came as Bureau sought to curb a wave of hacking attacks. ACLU calls it invasion of privacy on an enormous scale. So this came out, today.
Oh, I missed that.
The FBI searched emails, texts, and other electronic communications of as many as 3.4 million U.S. residents without a warrant over a year, the nation's top spy chief said in a report. The queries were made between December 20th and November 2021 by Federal Bureau of Investigation personnel as they look for signs of threats and terrorists within electronic data legally collected under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which I have a problem with that as well.
Patriot Act, yeah.
According to an annual transparency report issued Friday by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. The search came as the FBI made its push to stop hacking attacks, but the ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union, called an invasion of privacy on an enormous scale. Today's report sheds light on the extent of these unconstitutional backdoor searches and underscores an urgency of the problem. Okay, and it goes on and on about that. Okay, so literally, we've got the FBI pretty much doing as it wants. We've got the NSA doing as it wants, as under utilizing FISA. And there is nowhere in the Constitution anywhere that gives us authorization to the Congress.
It actually gives the opposite. It's the exact opposite of the Constitution.
Exactly. So it's, I mean, our government is doing more and more outside of its authority with each administration. Okay. And it's, again, I can't reiterate it enough. It's not just one side or the other. And it's not at one level of government. It's at every level of government. We've got city councils that are city governments that are violating their city charters. We've got counties that are violating their county charters. We've got states that are violating their state constitutions, and we've got others that are violating the federal constitution.
This is scary stuff.
It is. And it's getting worse.
It absolutely is. And I don't, I'm assuming it's because people are saying, well, it's not happening to me. It's that person who did. Well, they're being very loud, or they did something to deserve it. I mean, it's I've been banned from Discord. I've been suspended by YouTube for talking. And now I'm getting police after me because I plan to talk, to stand outside. I'm not even going to be on the camp. I'm not even going to be next to the event. I'm going to be outside the front entrance of the college with a sign. And I may be, I don't know, I could be anywhere from just me to maybe 50 people. I don't know. Maybe 100. Who knows? But that if they're doing that to me, and I want people to think about this, if they're going to do that to me, and we have this full-on onslaught from our education system and from our government, what are they going to do to you? What are they going to do in 5 years when your kid has been taught that this is the right way for things to happen, that this is the way they should always be? What's going to happen to you in 5 years? Everyone should be worried about this stuff now. It's really got me upset. It really has.
Okay, well, I mean, we've got others. We've got parents that have been tagged as domestic terrorists.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, for attending school board meetings.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got anymore. It is more and more. It is getting worse and worse. If anybody speaks out against any level of authority, and especially calls attention to that level of authority acting outside of the powers that were granted them by the people, we see these authorities working to
I want to bring on the screen. Let's bring Joe Murray.
crack down on them. It is literally getting out of control, and has been out of control for a long time. We lost your audio, Mike.
Yeah, it's been that way for too long. That it's been too insane.
Mm-hmm.
And you can point to city. The reason why we have cities burned down is because of this reason. With the BLM riots, it's the same thing. It's all connected. And I don't mean to say it in a conspiracy. Oh, it's all connected. I mean, we're watching individuals. The guy in Waukesha in Wisconsin, when he ran over that entire parade, targeting white people to run them over. When we're looking at the New York City subway shooter, and when he was targeting white people, this is coming out of that critical race theory, that idea that we are separate. That some people are intrinsically evil. Some people are intrinsically victims. This idea that we need a government to micromanage our lives to take every aspect of us, like Obamacare or with the vaccine mandates, that we are separating the people from the government, and we're separating the people from each other at step after step after step. And you know what? That only works out to be that creates more evil and more destabilization, and it makes me scared for the future. I don't know. Maybe people who are watching, they disagree. Maybe they agree. I'd love to hear what people have to think.
Oh yeah, I would love to also. I'd like to get people to join us and join in the conversation, and get some other views. I mean, we have our opinions, we have our views, but we'd like to get others to join in the conversation. Let us know what your thoughts are on this.
Absolutely. And how many people have been experiencing this? I know people. When I was over this weekend, I was at the People's Convoy in Albany, New York. Almost no one heard about the people. Did anyone hear about the People's Convoy?
Yes.
You told us yes.
I mean, from the news, not from individuals.
Oh no, only from you.
Okay, and that's the thing. At the event, I was the only news media actually covering the event, actually covering the 12 speakers, doing interviews with Larry Sharp and Andrew Giuliani, who are both running for the governor's position. And Larry Sharp has 10% in polling. He's at about 10%. You would think that the news media would cover at least their speaking, because this affects the election. Meanwhile, they're silent. They didn't care. The only thing I could find yesterday, I was looking it up. The only thing is about some kid throwing eggs at a convoy in California, and nowhere else in the nation. It makes no sense to me. This is a speech. This is how they get rid of it. Oh, we didn't silence you. We just didn't let anyone know that it existed or that it happened. We put it in a back burner underneath, in the basement, beneath a pile of rubbish. I mean, you could find it. It reminds me of, you ever read Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
Yes. Awesome book.
Great book. And the
Or
plans for
series,
Earth,
even.
the plans for Earth being destroyed. Well, it was in Beetlejuice in the office, in the basement, in the file cabinet that, was blocked off, but you could have found it. It's the same kind of idea.
Well, and then they hide it with nonsense things like the Johnny Depp trial that it doesn't matter to any of our lives, like these things that are important, but they cover it up with stuff to hide it from you.
Yeah. So you don't notice that these things are happening. And the news media never is honest enough to say, hey, these things are kind of connected. By the way, did you notice we trained your kids for the last 20 years to believe in this critical race theory, this progressive ideology? And now those kids are voting for us to take away your freedoms, to take away your rights, to redefine the Constitution and the amendments. Don't mind that. They're not really connected. Don't look at the connection. Just give up some more freedom. Just give up some more of your rights. Don't worry, we'll take care of you. We're going to buy all of your student loans because you'll vote for us.
Somebody brought this up. I think it was somebody on KNRS the other day about before we start forgiving student loans, maybe we should see where that money's going to, which is kind of a moot point at this point. But I mean, the tuition is not going towards tuition; it's going into people's pockets, or a good chunk of it is.
Well, something else that we need to look at, as far as student loans goes, is we need to look at the authority that the federal government doesn't have for issuing those loans or even guaranteeing their payment.
Well, first, they can't do it. It is unconstitutional because as an executive order, it's a class of people that he is affecting, and executive orders cannot be created that affect a class of people. So it's unconstitutional. Beyond that, so it takes an act of Congress. But the reason why it costs so much is because in the last 30 years, the middle management of colleges increased by 300%. We're spending money on middle managers in colleges. That's where the money's all going to. But at the same time, I'll say again, why is that my cost? No one's coming to pay my mortgage. No one's coming to pay my bills. Why am I paying for some kid who may or may not have gone to college? Maybe they get a degree in lesbian interpretive dance, and now they're working as the fry guy, or maybe they're becoming a doctor. Why is it my bill in either case? I don't understand it.
No, I've got another thing here to share on that. Okay. Because a lot of people don't understand this or don't get this part of it. Here is a breakdown. This is by educationaldata.org. Student loan debt by income level. Okay. Rich, 26.26% of the 1.73 trillion outstanding student loan. Upper middle class, 32.32%. So right there we have 58.5% of all student loan debt is owned by the people making the most money. Okay, 60%, roughly 60% of all total public student loan debt is owed by people with an income of over $74,000 a year.
Mm-hmm. You know what's not on that list? Not only is it some of the richest people, the upper middle class and beyond, that hold most of the debt, 53% of the debt is held by white males. So there goes their story about they're trying to help blacks and minorities. 53% is held by white males. And 98% 94% of women actually pay off all their student loans. So there's only 6% that we're looking there. So it's not about helping women. It's not about helping minorities. It's completely this is completely a buying votes kind of thing. And they're couching it, the idea, they're emotionally manipulating people with the idea that, oh, but we're helping minorities. You want to help minorities. This isn't the way to help minorities.
Okay. Well, let's get into okay. This actually says that blacks do tend to have more student debt
Under $30,000 on
Mhm.
average. Yes, they do. In the first 3 years, they tend to have more, but their net average is about $30,000 versus, I believe it's 55 for 73,000 for the rest. The numbers are all screwed because they're not.
They are. I had another. Let's stop sharing for just a second. Because I had another one that broke it down.
The
That's
picture.
funny, Jeremy. That's funny, Jeremy.
I wanted to share that one when you were talking about it earlier about getting the people to fight each other, but I couldn't figure it out.
Let me show people what you're talking about here. I can do it.
I'm computer illiterate.
That's all right. I'm barely illiterate. So
okay, here's one that I found from Brookings Institute. Okay. Go ahead and add your little thing.
That's what Jeremy was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about getting people to fight each other. This picture is old. I think it's 2018. Yeah.
And but it's accurate. It's always been accurate.
So accurate.
No, it is, and that's exactly what they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But I would love to hear from anyone on the left or anyone who's progressive or socialist, and they say, "Well, you're wrong. You just don't understand." I'd love to hear the logic behind it. But
okay, the Brookings Institute broke this down as well. And I'm looking for a specific quote in here.
now, as you're looking for that, Jeremy, how many people do you think, how many kids in college do you think right now
Right here.
are not paying their college loans, hoping that they're going to get it paid off by the government?
If I had to guess, I'd say 80%.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. What do you got, Mike? What's the quote?
Okay. So the 3% of adults with professional and doctoral degrees hold 20% of education debt. These households have a median earnings more than twice as high as the overall median income.
Yeah, again, why are we paying for this?
Exactly.
Why are we paying for this?
Absolutely.
But not only that, the other thing that nobody's saying anything about is if you make under certain incomes, you are absolved from paying your student debt until your income reaches a certain level.
Yeah, if you're in poverty or
Right.
140% of poverty. Yeah.
Okay, so we aren't helping low income.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
In delaying them being able to pay, but when they make the money, they get to pay it back.
Right.
This is just such an obvious scheme. I mean, the moment, and this is why they never quote any of the numbers to the public. They never actually tell people who owns the debt, what happens in their lives, how much money these people eventually start making. Because if you do tell people this, I don't know anyone who has their day-to-day bills and are saying, "Oh, you know what? Let's see, electricity's up 46%. Buying meat in the store is up 35%. Buying eggs have doubled. You know what? You know what I need to do? I need to take some of this money and give it to some random college student so that they don't have to pay their college bill, even though they make 3 times what I make." I don't hear anyone saying that.
I agree. We got the National Firearms Coalition. I'm going to kind of steer this way a little bit.
Sure.
They've joined actually, we'll come back to the National Firearms Coalition because Jan Raines has a question here that is pertinent to what we're discussing right now.
Hey, Jan.
Jan asks, my biggest question is why all of a sudden they need to cancel student debt. Why don't they cancel credit card debt? Because they want the votes. And I do agree. That is one part of it. They are trying to get the students that are in college. They're trying to get their votes.
Don't say that
That's literally all it is. That's all it's about.
Oh, yeah. But if we see by the end of the summer, I just saw a YouGov poll literally today. I did a video on it earlier. 53% of Democrats are against Joe Biden and or Kamala Harris, both for 2022 and 2024.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing. If they don't see a big enough bump with this college loan buyout, because they're going to delay it right up to the election, which will give kids a reason to come in and actually make the vote. So if they don't see them come in with a big enough number, I guarantee you the very next thing they're going to say is, and if we keep the House, we'll go after credit card debt next. Watch them say that to try and buy those votes too.
Well, and then there's also a push that for universal housing. Okay, where everybody gets a house. Where rent is no longer people don't pay rent. They get their house provided to them.
I've seen houses like that before. I've been in Moscow. I've seen the houses that they provide to people. You don't want to live in them.
Right.
They're tiny little hovels.
So go ahead and shift gears here a little bit. National Firearms Coalition has a comment here. How about the fact that every one of the people on the left interprets, well, let's show their comment. Interprets, which is nothing more than an opinion, thinks they need to ratify the second and take away firearms. The NRA has become nothing more than a lobbyist group, and there's nobody to defend our Second Amendment. Well, that's actually National Firearms Coalition. Thank you for your comment. Do appreciate it. And thank you for joining the conversation with us. One of the ways that Liberty First Foundation got its start was because of people violating Second Amendment. We saw a lot of laws, New York Safe Act. We see laws in California. In fact, we are actually very instrumental in fighting against I-1639 in the state of Washington. We also helped several counties there actually write legislation for county ordinances to prevent enforcement of I-1639 within their jurisdictions. So we are actually fighting against that. I like how a lot of people that are pro-gun regulation try to point out that the Second Amendment only applies to people that belong to a militia. There is nothing further from the truth on that. If we take a look at historical documentation and historical quotes of founding fathers and founders of this country and the framers of the Constitution, we see how they all classify the people as the militia. In other words, everyone, every citizen was considered to be a part of the militia. It wasn't just limited to organized militias. I just actually got through with listening to a very great book. I have to find the title of it right now.
Well, one thing while you're looking for that, I want people to remember this is why it's so important to be on top of your education, because the framers, when they wrote this, they were very, very explicit about each word they put in, every punctuation they put in, because they had a deep understanding of what the English language is. The reason why they have the commas in the Second Amendment as they do is to make sure it is clear that the militia and the public are two different groups and that the Second Amendment applies to both. That's why they were very careful about how they wrote that and the exact words they used. And it's because people don't learn. I mean, we've got Grammarly now instead of kids actually learning sixth grade English. So they don't understand how to use commas properly. They're typing in text speech rather than English. So they don't understand grammar and our English language. And so when someone tells them, oh, well, this is all the same, the way they worded it, no, that means malicious people, they don't know the difference. No, the difference is absolutely clear if you understand the English language and where the commas were used. And again, this is going back to they're dumbing down America and they're micromanaging our lives. But you mentioned there was a good book. Is this it?
Yes. Jeff Shera, the book's called The Glorious Cause. Okay. And it's a book about literally the revolution and the role that the militia played in the revolution. And the militia wasn't organized. The militia was farmers. It was husbands. It was kids. They had 12-year-olds out there, 11-year-olds out there fighting the revolution. I mean, admittedly, many of the young boys that were out there fighting were played the drum or were on the fife or something along that time, flag bearers, etc. They weren't actually in the fight, but they were on lines.
You know, they put their lives on the line. And and by the way, we should mention, since we're showing it there, we're not getting paid by this book or Amazon or anything.
No.
Just so, in case anyone's wondering. But again, it goes back to, there's so many examples of this we can see. Oh, they got a new quote.
Okay. So the National Firearms Coalition says, the right to keep and bear arms was thus included as a means to accomplish the objective of a well-regulated militia, to provide for the defense of a nation, to provide a well-trained and disciplined force to check federal tyranny, and to bring constitutional balance by distributing the power of the sword equally among people, the states, and the federal government.
It was another form of check and balance, which is the whole basis of our government. There's checks and balances.
Hmm.
Okay, the militia was the people. That's exactly
That's
right. The
Yes.
militia weren't. They didn't drill every week. The militia were untrained. In fact, Washington didn't like the militia. Um, Lafayette actually used the militia to really good extent in the Southern campaign of the Revolutionary War. However, Washington very rarely used the militia, and the militia were very effective. Washington didn't like it because they were untrained, so they weren't drilling all the time. Welcome, Frank.
That's the sound of a tasty Cobb salad from our friends at Chick-fil-A. Yes, we are available for sponsorship, Chick-fil-A. If you'd like to be part of our advertising regimen, please contact Michael at l1f.us.
James
Good evening, gentlemen.
Jan Raines follows up on that. Yes, they have tried to change what the word militia actually is so they can use it to fight the Second Amendment. And very true. Most people believe that the militia is the professional military. They don't understand. They've also tried to change it to state that the militia is the National Guard. Well, to some extent, yes, that is true because National Guard is operated by the state. But many states also have state militias, and there's also what a component of militias that's called the unorganized militia. The unorganized militia is what really turned out to fight in during the revolution. Again, yeah, states had their own state militias, but there were many unorganized militias that turned out to fight.
Yeah. Florida has a state militia that recently was in the news approximately 6 months ago. And there was a whole big hubbub about that. 300 members. DeSantis activated them. It was about 6 months. About 6 months ago. But that's just one part of it. Because, again, that's what the commas are for, to separate. There are two different groups. There's the militia, and then there's the people. And
Right.
that's why they make it very clear about that.
Well, and then digging more into the Second Amendment and definitions and things like that, our friends like Dick Heller went to go on to say, let's stop with just, militia stuff. And they want to say, okay, well, Second Amendment can't be used for self-defense. Well, Dick Heller got that fixed for us. But taking more down deep into definition of Second Amendment, Mike Marshall, was it Catano v. Phillips that defined what a bearable arm was?
Yes.
Or was it? Okay. So Catano v. Phillips, I'm pretty sure.
Satana v. Massachusetts.
Massachusetts, excuse me. Yeah.
National
who went down
Firearms
even
Coalition.
farther.
Hold on a second, and I will message you with an invite if you want to join the show.
But went even farther into define what a bearable arm was, and we're getting a lot of backlash. It's gotten so bad they have such a weak defense or offense that they say things along the lines of, and I'm so tired of hearing, the Second Amendment refers to cannons and muskets. Okay, if you want to use that argument, I'll take it on paper, written with a quill pen, delivered on horseback. Then we'll talk. They have nothing to go on, so they grasp at straws for everything that they come at us with.
Well, remember, there was the recent ruling, which I remember now. It's Young versus Hawaii. This is another way they're trying to use to try and twist things. According to this was the Ninth Circuit Court last year in the summer. The Ninth Circuit Court came out with this ruling, and it says that you do not have a right to defend yourself outside of your house. This is what the Ninth Circuit Court came up with, that you do not have the right to walk outside your door and be able to protect yourself, especially with a firearm. It was the responsibility of the government, and you cannot do that as an individual, which is obtuse. And this is their way to get around Heller. Yes, you can own a firearm, but you can't use it outside your home because you don't have that right, which no one agrees with. But this is what they're passing. And again, they're trying to find ways to tear up the Second Amendment because they expect that people don't understand our rights because they don't read the law. They don't read the Constitution. It's not taught anymore. Civics class isn't taught anymore. And they think that they can bully people with the power of either the internet or the government and try and force you to just, I'll say yes because I'm afraid of the government. And the answer is no, I'm not afraid of the government because the government's afraid of me. That's why they're passing all these laws. They're terrified of us understanding we have the power, not Nancy Pelosi, not Chuck Schumer, not Biden or Kamala. They can't dictate to us as if we are serfs and they are neo nobles. They can't do that. We have to pay attention.
The one person who believes that you don't have the right to defend yourself is the president of France. So it just goes to show you where in line the Ninth Circuit is when it comes to many of their decisions when they're aligned with macaroni.
Well, yeah, and keep in mind, most of the people who are saying that you don't need the guns to defend yourself are surrounded by people with guns. And the people who are saying, don't worry, the police will protect you. Hey, I know it's repeated on repeat, I'm sorry, but when seconds count, the police are only minutes away.
It's true. It's absolutely true. I had a crackhead. Well, to be exact, he was on PCP.
Are you profiling, Mike? Are you profiling people?
No, I'm retelling a story of my life. And he happened to be white. But he was on PCP, came up to my door. This is 7 years ago, Saturday morning, about 4 a.m. He's banging on the door, screaming, "Let me in, let me in." High as a kite. Woke me up. I was asleep. Woke me up. And my ex-wife was there, not my ex at the time, and we had a friend over who was dropping by, a pregnant woman, 5 months pregnant. And so I was asleep. She woke me up. I was like, "What? Do you hear that sound?" And I woke up. I heard it. I'm like, "What's going on here?" This guy's trying to bust down. Now, mind you, my front door, you're not getting through it. It's solid oak. It's like 3 inches solid oak. It's an old door. He ain't getting through that. But he decides to try and go around. Now, as we're calling 911, as I'm getting the ladies together into a second room that gave him an escape, and I'm blockading and I'm getting ready because I don't know what's coming next. I don't know how many of them there are. Guy comes barreling on up, coming up to my second floor. He's trying to break down the last door. Ladies are calling. They're on the phone with 911. And I'm having to make this decision. If he gets through this final door, this is it. I'm being as good as I can be. I'm like, okay, he comes through this final door. I'm not waiting for the police anymore. That's no longer an option. And this guy is so high on drugs, I don't know what's taking him down. Now, at the time, I didn't know he was high on drugs, but look at his actions. It's not the actions of a sane person. So this is not a hand-to-hand fight because he's going to win. And I don't know if he's armed. I don't know what he's got in his hands. And I'm not trying to find out. Imagine you're in that situation and you're waiting for the police to show up. Now, luckily, for a lot of reasons, we had 8 police cars show up in about 3 minutes. But I can't guarantee that's going to happen the next time. I can't guarantee.
And it takes a lot less than 3 minutes for somebody to open fire.
Yeah.
Well, and
National Firearms Coalition. Check your messages through your page. You've got a link there.
Well, and I don't know if anybody's seen. There's plenty of videos of shootouts with people on PCP and methamphetamine and other things where they'll take multiple magazines before they go down. And if they're determined to do something with those drugs going through their system, they're going to do it. And that's just one example. And Frank, you've got another example of, fortunately for you, I don't think it was the police, but it was somebody else who saved you. Is that correct?
Well, there's been several occasions
Mm-hmm.
where the employment of a firearm has come in handy when it comes to defending my life.
Mm-hmm. But you were telling me that there was a time where a good guy with a gun stopped a bad guy with a gun to save you.
Well,
And these stories go out every day, and most of them are hidden because they don't want people to hear about them. They want the shooting to happen so they can use the gun as a poo-poo on guns. They want people to get shot. They want this to happen so they have more ammunition against us.
well, they only want the shootings to take place that fit the narratives that they want to take
Right.
place.
No, they don't talk about the shootings in Chicago. Well, I guess they do because they say, "Oh, guns bad. Look at Chicago. Chicago's got the most gun control
Yeah,
laws out of anyone in the country."
But that's why Chicago is never really brought up by the anti-gun people, because what they would rather do is they would rather look at somewhere in rural America, some little city in Iowa or Kansas or something like that, where crime is at a minimal, and they want to cherry pick that one story that'll sensationalize the gun, not the actions, but the gun. And it'll be where, well, look at these people that have ready access to firearms because they're so accessible, because it's a Second Amendment friendly area and everybody has guns. So these things are bound to happen. You know, the kid who shoots up a school, it's bound to happen. They don't ever want to go and look at the areas that are plagued with violence that a gun is a component of. I don't say gun violence. There's no such thing as gun violence. It's violence that guns happen to be a component of, because there are a lot of other violences that we don't acknowledge as car violence, baseball bat violence, this violence, that violence. We don't associate that.
You're absolutely right.
They'll never grab a hold of.
Welcome to the stream, National Firearms Coalition.
Hey, how are you?
Hey guys.
What's up, guy? He said they'll never grab a hold of the ones that fit their mold of saying, we have instituted every single gun control policy that we want nationwide, and it failed. They don't ever want to highlight that, so you're never going to see it get highlighted in Chicago. You're never going to get to see what gets highlighted, you know, in New York when it gets really bad. And the media is funny how they play it both ways when they have all the gun control over in Europe, and as soon as one country gets invaded by another, they're over there handing out fully automatic firearms like they're candy. And say, "Oh, yeah, we need their guns to defend the country." What about us?
Right.
Why doesn't that narrative play here?
Well, go ahead, Mike Marshall.
I got into a discussion today with somebody about how the Second Amendment is critical to national security. And I brought up that Ukraine was a huge example of that. How when Ukraine started being invaded by Russia, all of a sudden the government realized, hey, if we want to be able to stop this invasion, we better arm our citizens. And the person that I was talking with on this is on Twitter, came back with and says, yeah, that went over real well because citizens started using guns to go after quote unquote Nazis. And I said, and he goes, show me a place in history where civilians having firearms has gone awry. Well, hasn't gone awry. And I said, very simple. Look at the Aleutians during World War II, where Alaskan natives, because they were armed, were able to hold off a Japanese invasion of the Aleutian Islands. We can look at the Revolutionary War, where a huge component of our military force, our ability to stand against The British was due to we're getting a lot of background.
Yeah. National Terror, you think it may be
Hang on.
your volume, or do you keep an extra feed going at the same time?
Yeah, we're getting a lot from National Firearms Coalition.
Oh, he's muted. He's trying to say something. Go ahead.
Is that better?
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, that's a lot better.
Yeah, I didn't realize I still had the stream in the background playing.
Okay.
So
There we go.
Okay.
That's much better, yes.
Was a huge component of our ability to stand against the British during the Revolutionary War. And then we look at other events that have happened through history, like Battle of Athens, Tennessee, where armed civilians were able to stop a corrupt government from being able to control elections and everything else. We have all these examples through history where armed civilians have actually been able to stand against tyranny. And we also have plenty of examples where civilians that weren't armed were literally terrorized by their governments. We can look at Nazi Germany with the with Jewish people. We can look at what happened with Black Wall Street in the 20s, where the state police were literally bombing this primarily Black community that was unable to take a stand against them. We had civilians going through burning houses, killing Blacks in this community, a very affluent Black community in the 1920s, and completely devastated it. So again, we've got countless examples throughout history where unarmed civilians have been literally terrorized by their governments, have been oppressed by their governments. And then we've got examples of where armed civilians have been able to stand against tyranny, have been able to stand against a government out of control.
may I add to that?
Go
Please,
right
yeah.
ahead.
So on our page yesterday, we had a guy. We're very factual and resourceful with research. Everything is public information. You just have to know where to find it.
Right.
But this guy came out with a lot of questions regarding armed nations versus disarmed nations. And one of the biggest arguments among the populace of diversity between should citizens have guns and should they not is to look at these nations that have removed the firearms from the civilians. And look at, they don't have any more mass shootings because of it. And the argument, the argument never really goes any further than that. But if you do the research, excuse me, since 1917, there has been 504 mass killings in America alone that do not involve a firearm. One of the best examples is in, I don't remember if it was in the 70s or the 80s, so don't quote me. But the gay bar that had ejected a person for being too intoxicated, that went to the gas station around the corner and bought a little 8-ounce bottle of lighter fluid and blew up the entire bar and killed 30 or 40 people.
That was called the Happy Land Massacre.
Right. Yes. And if you look at these other nations, look at Japan, look at China, look at Australia, even though Australia was only semi-automatic rifles. By removing the guns from society, all of the other crimes went up. Vehicular mass slaughters, mass stabbings. There's been mass stabbings in schools in China in the last 5 years. It's a very common argument that we get into, and we had to go through. I don't have it all memorized off the top of my head, but we actually went through a lot of public documentation yesterday for this guy, and he just didn't want to hear it. And the only reason he didn't want to hear it is because they see this one number, and this one number convinces them that all firearms are illegal. And that's how many people die a year in the U.S. because of guns. They don't break that number down into how many are suicides, how many are police shootings, how many are gang shootings. But in the 2016 studies, 80% of inmates questioned admitted that they had received the firearm through an illegal transaction, and only 16% of the remaining 20 only 3% admitted that they had gotten the firearm from a family member, a friend, or stolen it from family. And then the other 17 refused to answer. So the biggest argument that we're having with our page right now is the left, and they want everybody to insure all of their firearms. And we had a really long, I mean, it's got like 3,000 and some comments on it right now, from people just arguing that if we force insurance and licensure and registration of every single firearm, that it's going to correct the mistakes and correct the issues. But what nobody actually stops and thinks about is look at motor vehicles, for example. I hate to use a car to reference between the two, you know, a gun and a car. But we forced car insurance on all people that drive. How many uninsured motor vehicle accidents are there a year in the country where people have lost their lives, where people have not gotten paid back the price of their vehicle because the person driving was uninsured? So then they introduced uninsured motorist protection that we as the consumers, again, had the option to start purchasing. So if you force this on Americans, on legal law-abiding gun owners, are the criminals really going to, is that 80% of firearm crime in 2016 going to insure their illegally purchased firearms? Or is it just going to open up a whole new array of new laws to follow, to proceed with uninsured, you know, murder with an uninsured weapon, attempted assault with an uninsured weapon? And then we're going to have uninsured firearm insurance. And it's ridiculous. The amount of regulation that people want to pass is just absurd in my eyes.
Well,
Go ahead, Beth.
Okay, and we'll take one place where gun control has been in effect for some time now. I think it was last year or the year before. I don't remember for sure which year it was. But London surpassed New York City in violent crime.
Yep.
January 2020.
Okay.
Yep.
New York City has a population of 18,867,000 people. London has a population of 8.982 million people as of 2019. Okay. So we have a city with roughly half the population in New York City that has surpassed them in violent crime.
Yeah.
And they have very strict gun laws enacted in London. So taking away guns does not stop violent crime. In fact, if anything, it encourages violent crime.
Well,
and that's been proven over and over and over. Well, multiple studies have shown.
Well, National, I'm actually going to look at this from an entirely different way. Let's look at this from the side of these anti-gun people. All right? And here's the thing. Let's look at countries where the people were denied guns, where they lost their right. Which the most recent example we can see of that is going to be in Venezuela. Okay?
Right.
In Venezuela, after the new government came in, they took away everyone's guns. They're going to be a socialist nation.
And my phone died.
Look, that's all right.
Go ahead. Continue on Venezuela. Sorry.
They took away everyone's guns because it's going to be a socialist nation. And what wound up happening as a result of that is, according to the New York Times, 2018, there were 5,300 and some odd murders by the Venezuelan government against the Venezuelan people because they couldn't defend themselves. And we see that repeated. We've seen the same thing in Cuba. We've seen that in North Korea. We've seen that in China. We've seen that in Russia. In every socialist nation where we have seen the message be, oh, the government's going to protect you. You're going to be okay. Give us all your guns. Even when we look at Australia and New Zealand, we're not seeing, they only had 2 mass shootings in a decade. There is no net difference. There has been no change. Guns aren't making people safer. And to mention what Jan had mentioned earlier, and you can see this, by the way, folks, if you go to the FBI Crime in the USA, it is an annual report. And it is true that people dying because of knives are 4 to 5 times, depending on the year, 4 to 5 times more deadly than all rifles and shotguns combined, but not handguns. But that's a different thing. But again, they tell us, well, it's an assault weapon. It's your rifle. It's your AK-47s, your AR-15s. That's the deadliest thing. No, a knife is. And we're not even talking about hands. Using bare hands to kill somebody, that happens to be about 3 times as deadly as all rifle deaths, all shotgun deaths in America. That's including suicides. Gang deaths every year amount to 6,000 gang deaths every year. So there's a lot of numbers here that people aren't being told about that are very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
The answer has never been take away people's arms and make them defenseless. Because when we do that, it no longer becomes the criminal that people have to fear. It's the government that the people have to fear, because the government will kill more people than all the crimes and all the crime that had been existent beforehand. People have to understand that. You're not being made safer because the government said, oh, let's take away the guns.
Well, the lion isn't safer if you take away the porcupine's quills.
No.
Yeah. And
No.
the other thing you mentioned was about the fact that they're trying to get this new insurance. The reason why they're doing the insurance, and guys, tell me if you think I'm wrong, it's like with HR 127 that was put into Congress by Representative Sheila Jackson Lee. And the whole idea of this bill, and it's been put into several states under different names, is that you have to get several licenses. You have to be approved by a psychiatrist. You have to
I will be right back, guys.
Okay. You've got to get several forms. You have to have insurance. You have to have insurance, a license for bullets, a license for guns. And the whole idea about this is it's going to cost so much money that you can't afford to do this. We already see that in New York City right now. It costs $650 to apply for a gun license with no guarantee that you'll get it. The initial decline rate is about, if I remember correctly, 70%. So people are losing $600 the first time, and they have to go back and do it again. So it's costing them $1,200 to get the permit in New York City to be able to have a firearm. Let me ask you, we know that your energy costs, electricity has gone up 46%. Your meat is up 35%. You're making less money. Inflation's up to 7.5%, 8%. Who has an extra $1,200 laying around to maybe get New York State to say, okay, you can have a license now, and then you still got to buy the gun and the bullets and train.
Well, then you have
you out.
Then you have a tremendous amount of the population. This is supposed to be my right to own a firearm. I will be goddamned if I'm going to pay somebody $600, $1,200, $2,000. I would rather either not own a gun at all, or find out about one of them spooky ghost ones that they keep talking about. If I got to give them $2,000 to exercise my constitutional guaranteed rights. There are, in New York City when I grew up there was a time when you could go to your local sporting goods shop and buy a rifle or a shotgun, whatever. And you didn't. There was just the little background check stuff on it, but there was no paperwork involving New York City. That only had to do with handguns. Now it's shotguns, right? You have to have a permit to own a shotgun. Seriously? Need a permit to own a shotgun? Is this about keeping guns off the streets, or is this about keeping one police plaza, fully entrenched in mochaccino latte coffees, because the bar runs dry? I don't know where all of that money is going, but I tell people in the city, listen, that shotgun you have, the one that was manufactured before 1975, that's been in your closet for 30 years, that's grandfathered. And they go, I don't have a shotgun from 1975. Well, you better go find one.
Yeah.
You better go find one. And then you put it in the closet. And then when somebody comes after you, you got something to defend yourself with that you don't have to go to jail about.
Well, let's look at the other issue that insurance creates. I think we all talked about this, I don't know, 2 years ago. And first of all, insurance creates a national registry because you can look at how many people are insured on what kind of things. So you automatically get a whole new registry, which they say, oh, it's not a registry, it's an insurance list. And who's insured and what they're insured with. And then we talked about making the insurance outrageously, hundreds, thousands of dollars a month to make it impossible to get. And so if you don't get the insurance and you still get a firearm, bam, you're a criminal. It is unbelievable, the government's ability to turn us into criminals overnight, however they want to do it and for whatever reason they want to do it.
And just wait till the insurance crap passes, and then we get the thing nobody talks about, the assigned risk pool. And people start finding out that they're going to be getting different rates depending upon their age, their sex, if you're allowed to actually mention what gender you are.
Which one?
How many, you're under 35, you got to pay a higher rate because, the people under 35 generally are a little bit more hot-tempered than, someone who's a little bit more mature. Oh, wait, you're over 60 years old. Well, your eyes are going bad. You might wind up using the gun on the wrong person. You're going to have to pay a higher rate. Oh, wait, you want your insurance renewed? I guess we're going to have you go get requalified so that we can verify that you know how to operate that firearm safely. Oh, wait a second. Your neighborhood is a higher prone neighborhood to crime than somebody else's. Well, you're in a higher risk pool, so they're going to figure out a way how to jack your ass up any way they can for as much as they possibly can. And they're talking about it. And this is now taking the second time in my lifetime where I will see the government forcing private citizens to have to do business with a private company over the exercising of a constitutional right.
Well,
how are you going to manage that I turn over any of my money to a private company because I want to exercise my personal rights?
Well, here's something else that's going to happen, and it's already happened in New York, and it's happening in California. Pretty soon, these states are going to make it so that it's impossible for you to get any type of firearm insurance.
Yeah.
New York State has pretty much banned any agency that has firearm insurance.
And then they'll pass a law.
Yeah.
Then they'll pass a law requiring that you get the insurance.
Exactly.
Right. And then they'll make the insurance impossible to get. And then every time there's a violent crime or a gun is involved, they'll jack the rates even more. And they won't say who used the gun. It could be the police that used the gun to stop the violent crime. And they're going to say, oh, gun was involved. Sorry. Them's the rules.
It's just wicked and terrible how it's terrible how they're going to always just be attacking us over and over again.
Dan, we actually discussed
last week
your question last week. There is a Democrat from the state of Florida who is the head of the agricultural department in Florida, lead Democrat in the state of Florida, who is suing the Biden administration because of this very issue. She is suing for citizens to be able to get gun permits and to own firearms, even with medical marijuana card.
Yeah, because a lot of states make that illegal. New York State, it's illegal if you have
Well, it's
medical.
actually illegal
I think
under
it's
federal law.
federally. Because unless marijuana is federally deregulated, you're considered a
felon.
yeah, but it's
Class 1.
yeah, and basically anyone who is in possession of it because it's federally regulated can't own a firearm, and therefore even if you're around somebody who has a firearm and you're involved with a crime and there's a firearm there and you're there somewhere, you could actually get charged because you are regulated. Restricted, that's the word. You're a restricted person.
Yep.
Which is why that's why it was illegal for Hunter Biden to go buy that pistol in the state of Delaware. And I've been to the gun store that he bought the gun from. It was because when asked on the question, are you currently the user of any of these, drugs or anything, he answered no.
Right.
And clearly at the time he was using several substances that are frowned upon by law enforcement, which made him answering that question on the Nix background check a felony.
Right.
And to which we still don't understand why the ATF has refused to follow up with that once he illegally disposed of the firearm, that was purchased with the background check that was erroneously filled out, and why ATF still hasn't bothered to investigate Mr. Biden, lad Biden, Master Biden.
Yeah, it actually falls under the AG, and so Merrick Garland was supposed to do it. And January, he was asked when he went to Congress and he was having a congressional hearing. Merrick Garland was asked, "Okay, so what's the status of that? Is there an investigation going on with Hunter Biden about the gun crime, about him lying on the forms?" And he refused to answer the question, which is...
I can't talk about any case that may be pending in front of the Attorney General, anything that's under current investigation. I can't comment on it. You have to wait. We can't comment on it. That's how they get away with commenting on anything.
That's exactly what he said. And it's wrong because if you ask the question as it was asked by several senators, well, we're not asking if there's an investigation. Did you start an investigation? Not what is the status of it. You can ask if there was an investigation started, not what the status is or to report on it. And of course, he just dodged it. But I guarantee you, none of us here or anyone watching this program would get treated in the same way. Not in the least.
Oh, no.
It's ridiculous that. But I think it all comes back down to people need to know what it is, what the law is. People, you have to read. And when you see these things, and I know every one of us have found laws in various states, different court actions and legislation that's been proposed, and we've all seen them where they're going, are they trying to actually pass this? Are they New York State wanted to ban, and I remember I made a big thing about it last year, about this same time of year. They were going to make it illegal to own a bulletproof vest because of crime. Their excuse was, well, that's criminal. Criminals use bulletproof vests. One, no, they don't. And two, it is defense. It is personal defense. Why is it illegal? And they tried their best to pass that. People need to read and hold their politicians accountable and not let them try and slip these things through the back door.
Be right back.
Okay. But go ahead.
I was going to say it with all of those, and we can get to this later. But anyone seen the Donald Trump Donald Trump Jr. gun rights task force that he's working on.
Yes, I saw
So
it. I saw it, and I reached out to find out a little bit more information. Have not yet heard back.
I'm sorry, and as much more support for that family as I do compared to the current administration. But let us not forget what kind of stuff that Donald Trump Sr. allowed to get passed and get changed and stuff,
Oh.
and had no, well, just let it go. You know, it's not a big deal.
Well, Junior is cut from a little bit of a different cloth when it comes to firearms. I met him at SHOT a couple of years back, and he's different. He is a true believer.
Okay.
He really is a true believer, and he was up in arms after that shooting at some shipping place where the guy had 2 guns. One of them had a suppressor on it, and that tantamount killed the Hearing Protection Act, because it was the day after that shooting that Trump came out and said, "I've never been a fan of suppressors." All right, well,
Virginia Post Office.
You just killed the Hearing Protection Act. You know, his son was up in arms. His son was one of the biggest lobbyists for that. If I'm not mistaken, Donald Trump Jr. is an investor in one of America's major manufacturers of hearing protection devices. So when he killed that, so anybody who says the Trumps are only out there to make profit and this and that, well, if that was the case, Trump killed his son's business investment. You know, and instead of the one we have now, where he's inviting business partners to the White House 9 times a month for rendezvous with God knows who, Trump, you can't say that he was using the office to enrich his family.
No.
No.
And nor was I saying that, but
because if Biden was a gun guy, he would be saying that every gun owner in America should be required to own a hearing protection device and should be required to pay the $200 tax stamp. Because he'd be looking to, sell the gun, force us to buy guns so they could, increase revenue.
You mean like how Nancy Pelosi owns? She has stock in several wind energy companies, and she just so happens to be a major proponent of wind energy.
You don't say.
Well, let's not forget Texas 2020. Wind energy.
Yeah. It's so ridiculous. I've been doing a lot of work on all of this, and I'm telling you, we are in such a scary place, because while we're seeing them try and strip our rights away, and at the same time that they're trying to kill our free speech, we're in the middle of an economic war. I don't know if a lot of people realize that. We are having an economic war with Russia right now, and we're not in a good position. The fact that they're now selling oil for rubles is a way to destroy. It's meant to be an attack on the US dollar, because the first country, as soon as one of these countries who can't rely on NATO, since we're not exporting oil, they can't count on us giving them oil. They're going to have to buy it from Russia. And we just had a report from Deutsche Welle, the German TV. They just mentioned since a third of all the oil comes from Russia, it cannot be replaced. Someone is going to pay Russia in rubles. The second they start doing that, the dollar is no longer the world currency, and our inflation rates start skyrocketing. Now, that's really scary, because they're doing that at the same time that we have this new Ministry of Truth, this disinformation, and that means they're going to suppress that news. That's not good.
Now, this week,
Right.
Made in the headlines again. Russia stopped gas and oil from going to several countries in Europe because they wouldn't pay in rubles.
Right.
Poland and Bulgaria. Yeah.
I thought it was Germany as well.
No, not Germany yet. Germany's trying to figure out what to do. The next nation that's up is going to be Greece on May 25th. they're the next one, and they have to make their decision.
I believe,
So-
it was Clint Beck talking about it. But sorry, Mike Marshall, go ahead and continue.
I'm sorry.
So, I actually want to circle back around to the insurance issue.
Okay.
One of our affiliates, and we are an affiliate, actually, we are an affiliate of theirs, is U.S. Law Shield. See the link up on the screen right now. You can go there and you can sign up to be a member of U.S. Law Shield. This is one of the things that has been stopped in the state of New York. Even though we are an affiliate of U.S. Law Shield, I cannot get a membership with U.S. Law Shield because I live in the state of New York.
Yeah, well, you know why you can't? Well, because U.S. Law Shield works. U.S. Law Shield offers a product that's designed to help protect the gun owner in the event that he or she has to use that firearm in a self-defense situation.
Well, they actually help not just in a self-defense situation. They help with any type of legal issues with firearms.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. But what they do is they provide a service to the gun owner that makes owning a gun easier. It makes owning a gun more sensible. It makes owning a gun that much more of an important thing to do. So, because it alleviates a lot of the worry and concern that people have. The kind of insurance that the states want to impose on us for having guns is not the same kind of insurance that provides for U.S. Law Shield. That's the kind of insurance that they want to impose on us that has all kinds of rules and regulations attached to it. Like Jan Rains earlier pointed out about how you're not going to be covered on the insurance if your ammunition isn't locked up separately from your firearms. That your firearms all have to have a gun lock on it, and then in a safe, and then not accessible. And then, so basically, they want you to have the insurance that mandates that your gun is rendered useless under any circumstances until said time that you do need to finally get to it, and then you get in trouble for it.
Right.
They basically want your gun to be like a flying class.
Yeah, they want you to gain access to your safe, to your gun safe with your last breath.
Now let's not mention what happened to Frank at the airport in his situation. That's how difficult they want it to be.
Yeah.
And
meanwhile, we just had a state representative here from North Carolina. I forget the guy's name. I don't know enough about him. I don't know the whole situation. All he knows that for the second time in a few months, he was caught by the TSA airline security at Charlotte Douglas International Airport, trying to get a loaded gun past security. Now, I'm going to take this with a grain of salt. Was he trying to get on board a plane? I haven't been able to find out. Was he trying to get through a security checkpoint? I have no idea. Or was he just in the airport with a firearm? And see, I don't know. My experience with Charlotte Douglas International Airport when it comes to firearms has been less than stellar.
Yeah, 100%.
Less than stellar when my own firearm is skidding across the conveyor belt in front of people. I kind of have to wonder about the veracity and tenacity and the accuracy of a story that comes out against that paints a very poor picture of a pro-Second Amendment political candidate. I don't necessarily. I mean, I can understand. Okay, was he trying to get on board a plane and just thought that he could sneak the gun in his shoe? All right, then if that's the case, dude, come on, get your shit together. There's got to be a better way. But if this was just the guy who was waiting at the terminal for somebody to get off a plane, and somebody said, aren't you Mr. Cotto? Yeah, oh yeah. Oh, would you happen to be armed? Yeah. Oh, call TSA. He's trying to get a gun through security.
Well, hold on a second. Here, I'm bringing up the story now.
I don't think it does mention what he was doing.
Actually, it does.
It
It
does.
was found in his bag.
Oh, it was found in his bag. Oh, that's ridiculous. Say hi, Con.
Hey, Papa.
Yes, good boy. He's jealous.
So this is brought to us by Syracuse.com. TSA loaded gun found in Rep. Madison Cawthorn's bag by airport security.
So it's a safe gun.
A loaded gun was found in North Carolina U.S. Representative Madison Cawthorn's carry-on bag.
Nope, we just lost him. He'll be back.
Mhm.
But here's the thing. When they say loaded, if it's like New York State, if you have ammo in the same bag
container
as the gun, then that's considered loaded, even though the gun can be completely safe.
Well, according to flying into JFK International Airport, if you have the spring from an AR-15 magazine, not the case, not the follower, not the base plate, the spring from a magazine, you can get charged with possession of a felonious magazine.
Well,
Jesus.
Happened last year. Guy went, and he's actually had to plead the case out. He actually had to plead the case out and did a little bit of time, if I'm not mistaken. He had the coil spring. Now, if you're familiar with an AR-15 spring, it's not like a coil, it's not like a round coil. It's a rectangular. It's like a flight of stairs with landings, goes all the way around. It was found in his bag. Apparently, the guy must have been maintaining his magazines, changing some springs, doing the rest of that, as any of us will do. And apparently, maybe this was an old range bag. I don't know. But he had the spring from a 30-round AR-15 magazine in the bag. No base plate for the magazine. No follower connected to the spring. No case for the magazine. Just the spring. He got charged with possession of a high-capacity magazine, a violation of the New York Safe Act.
It's unbelievable.
I did not hear about that. That's crazy.
So I am going to sign out. I know we still got about maybe a half hour left, but one last thing I wanted to touch on before we go, if we have 2 or 3 minutes, is we are now up to 18 destroyed food processing plants across the U.S., including 2 that randomly, I think on the same day, had airplanes crash into them.
Yes.
On the same day. It's coincidence? I think not. No, thank you.
Yeah.
But people, it's not. It's getting bad. It is bad. Wake up.
Yes.
Do your research. Prep. Preppers are not crazy. They're prepared. That's why they're called preppers. Do your research. Get your food. Train. Go out to the range. Practice. Get to know your neighbors. Get to know the people around you. It's not getting bad. It's bad. With that being said, I think I've adapted and I will stuck with when seconds count. Police are only minutes away. Everybody have a good night. Thanks for having me, and we'll see you next week.
Have a great night, Jeremy. Thanks a lot.
And I'm going to be following Jeremy out the door because I've had a long day. Unlike you youngins, can stay up all night. Those old fat guys. I got a long day ahead of me tomorrow, and I had a long day ahead of me.
You know why you're tired? You know why you're tired? Because the same reason. No, it's because the same reason why you're fuzzy right now. It's eating the rabbit food. Got little bunny ears.
That's my Cobb salad. What's left of my Cobb salad, which was quite delicious. Although, listen, my friends at Chick-fil-A, I am going to tell you honestly, I was not going to have the avocado dressing on my salad. That was not going to happen. I don't eat avocados. I don't like when people say guac, guacamole. I don't like it. So I had some Thousand Island instead on there. It was delicious. It complemented the chicken quite well.
I spent all day moving soil.
And still with the damn soil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
finally got my sand delivered, so I've spent most of the day moving sand, all by hand, wheelbarrow.
Well, this stuff keeps.
I get to do it again tomorrow.
If you're still doing this by next weekend, I'm calling up the local rent-a-center over there, and I'm going to get you a little bobcat. Send it over there for the weekend.
Actually, I should have sand all moved tomorrow.
Well, I was going to go to the range tomorrow, but we have a couple of instances around the house here that came up, so I might be doing a late night range review tomorrow night from the indoor range at Point Blank Range in Matthews, North Carolina, to where I have VIP access as a member of the Patriot Club.
Nice.
So, yes, I have 24-hour access to the range.
Oh, that's nice. That's very nice.
Oh, you don't. I don't know if I told you guys what happened the other day.
No.
We bought Lori a Smith & Wesson CSX, the brand new.
Yeah,
the brand new offering. And they went. Her and her sister went into the range to shoot, and they were very upset that I didn't go into the range with them to shoot. But I had ulterior motives. I really wasn't worried about going and shooting the handgun because I had already shot the same handgun off the rental wall a couple days earlier. So while they were inside, I was at the counter loading up 25-round magazines with the guys from the counter, and I walked into the range with magazines stuffed into my back pockets and a fully automatic MP5.
Oh, nice.
So while they were at one lane, popping off one shot, we stuck around them, went to the other one, loaded up, slapped it, and just went full auto inside the range. Took everybody by surprise.
Oh, God.
It was most enjoyable.
I can imagine.
Most enjoyable. Also extremely expensive. I don't have to pay to rent the gun, but I do have to pay for the ammunition, which is not cheap in Biden's America. Thank you very much.
No, it is not.
Think about it. 3 years ago, we were paying on average 19 cents per round for 45 ACP and 15 cents a round for 9mm. Maybe 25 cents, 30 cents a round for 10 millimeter, 35 cents a round for 380 auto. Right now, 9mm steel jacket is averaging somewhere around 47 cents a round. For steel jacket, for steel cased full metal jacket, 9mm, 47 cents a round. The crappiest crap you could run through your gun is more expensive today than premium was 3 years ago. So if you think that what's going on in Europe doesn't matter, consider where our leads come from.
Mm-hmm.
Consider where the chemicals that go into our primers come from. Consider how much was done with the COVID shutdowns and where it screwed up the supply chains. Guys who reload for fun, they still reload. Guys who reload their ammunition because they're trying to save money, their equipment is just dusty because there's no way that you're going to save a buck when primers are costing you 8 times what they were a couple of years ago if you can get them. I'm seeing guys at the range that would never have thought about coming with a dustpan and a broom, or coming with dustpans and broom because they're collecting as much brass as they can on the hopes that one day they might be able to reload because they can't afford to buy brass right now. It's too expensive.
Yeah, well, everything is getting that way. And
is you think running a YouTube channel where we play with guns all day is fun and inexpensive? No.
Fun, yes.
No. For just 49 cents a day, you can support a YouTube gun guy and his addiction to firearms. Just 40 for the price of a cup of coffee. Sorry, I'm doing my
Well,
selfish struthers again.
I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this up.
Yeah, 'cause I'm
we've got
getting
one
close.
visitor left. We're pushing an hour and 45 minutes now. We're at an hour 40. I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to thank everybody for their comments. Jan, thank you for all your comments. And National Firearms Coalition. We look forward to having you on the show next week.
Yep.
With that, if everything we do through the Liberty First Foundation is completely out of pocket. All of our gun reviews, everything is out of pocket. All the guns that Frank has reviewed, he's bought and paid for. All the ammunition that he uses, he pays for. Everything that we do legislatively, our website, all that stuff's out of pocket. If you would like to help us and you want to help support what we do, please look at getting in membership through U.S. Law Shield, our affiliate. Great company, great way to protect yourself in the event that you run into legal issues with firearms. Either that, or you can go to our website and you can make a direct donation through either PayPal or Cash App, and we can put that to use, paying for some of the stuff that we do. One other way that you can really help us out, if you don't want to send us a donation or you don't want to get a membership to U.S. Law Shield, please like and share this live stream. Share our group. Join the Liberty First Foundation Facebook group. Watch our videos on YouTube. Like and share them. Anything that you can do to help us spread the message about what we do, who we are, is helpful. It allows us to get in front of more people and allows us to spread our message even further. Thank you again. And with that, we're going to go ahead and call it a night.
You guys be good.